Y'all more awake than that. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Some of y'all have been up early this morning. When I arrived around 9:15, I saw a bunch of you here. So here, eager to get going, get the day started. My name is Ousmane Power-Greene. I am one of the co-organizers of Power of Truth. I teach history and Africana studies at Clark University in Worcester, Mass. And I'm on the board of Self-Evident Education. When we first conceived of Power of Truths, it had been our dream to have a day dedicated to mostly all of you. The first year, it didn't come together necessarily, but seeing you all here, to me, it's just absolutely wonderful. I think a lot about this sort of road to convening over issues that we're passionate about, particularly when it comes to social justice, equity, equality, all those things. And for another year, the fourth year, I'm excited to spend time thinking about these topics and issues with all of you today. And then, of course, those who can come back tomorrow on Saturday, that'll be great too. In 1843, Sojourner Truth arrived in this community. At some point, she bought a house that's walking distance from here. She came for what she considered her calling, to travel and teach about the truth of slavery and what it means for all of us to live in a nation that condones this inhuman practice. Right? Her message of calling out those in power to recognize the forces who oppose them are actually larger than they realize is a lot of what we're trying to do today. Our festival and conference seeks to reinforce our collective call to challenge those in power in the face of a state that forces people like Sojourner Truth 175 years ago into a position of bondage. Here we are continuing her tradition, inspired by her vision for a just society where all people are treated with dignity and respect, right? I challenge myself to think about the life and legacy of Sojourner Truth, other abolitionists and activists every day, particularly in times like today when there is that feeling that no one is listening or is doing anything about everything that's happening all around us. I do hope that all of us come away today with at least one or two things that we learn that's new and that we could maybe apply to our circumstances, wherever we are and whatever context we are. And I do hope that we take the messages that we learned here and not only apply them, but also spread those lessons to others that couldn't make it, because obviously it's a privilege to be able to take off a Friday from school and be able to come here. So that's our charge. That's my charge for all of us. That's certainly what I'm going to do. I have a lot of empty pages in this notebook. I have a new one, so I'm looking forward to filling it up with some of the questions that you all ask. But in the meantime, let's get started. I want to introduce Michael Lawrence-Riddell, someone said executive producer because you make so many films, right? Executive director of Self-Evident Education, to get the day started and to give us some instructions. So let's give a hand to Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Lawrence-Riddell. I'm the executive director of Self-Evident Education, which I founded in 2020. And I founded Self-Evident because I believe that accurate and honest stories from history, particularly critical, inclusive, and diverse stories, could be a powerful tool for racial justice. We make documentary films that tell stories of our nation's past to help us understand our nation's present so we can envision and build a just future. There are wars going on outside. It can feel at times like the world is on fire. The war that I'm personally experiencing right now is a war on history. In recent months, stories of Black, Latino, Indigenous, and women veterans like Jackie Robinson, Emily Jasmine Tatum Perez, and the code talkers from many Indigenous nations were erased from government websites and replaced with error pages that said in capital letters, DEI, as if DEI is a four-letter word. I beg the people out there and it's no one in this room, but I beg the people out there who are saying that they are against DEI to force themselves to say those words. Diversity, equity, inclusion. You're against those things? For real? Like, how can that be? How can you be against those things? And tell me, which one of those three are you against, right? Are they against diversity? Are they against equity? Are they against inclusion, right? What they are doing is not hidden. They're telling us very plainly what it is that they are doing, right? There's a new executive order called Restoring Sanity, Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History, it's called. And in that executive order, it says that our country has come under divisive, race-based ideologies. And in the same executive order, it argues that we should put Confederate monuments back up. Think about the most divisive, race-based ideology that has existed in the history of this country. It started with slavery, it continued with the Confederates, and it continued beyond that with Jim Crow, right? So they're not hiding what they're doing. And at the same time, we are not hiding what we are doing, right? This is not new, what they're doing. The United Daughters of the Confederacy, they skewed the history of the Civil War and made it so Southern textbooks could not talk about slavery in a negative light, right? They created these textbooks where school children were learning that slavery was a good institution and that black people benefited from it. That was what was taught in textbooks. And that's what these guys right now are trying to get back in our textbooks, right? And so we're not hiding what we're doing. As Malcolm X once said, of all our studies, history is best qualified to reward our research. When you see that you've got problems, all you have to do is examine the historic method used all over the world by others who have problems similar to yours. Once you see how they got theirs straight, then you know how you can get yours straight. When we study how others have faced injustice, we can learn how to face our own. That's why we're creating spaces for honest dialogue, artistic expression, and collective action. Now more than ever, we need spaces where truth is told, community is built, and love is practiced in public. Join us. Thank you. I'd like to welcome to the stage my man Kevin McQuillan, who's going to talk with you a little bit about the David Ruggles Center. Kevin will also be leading a walking tour of the Black history of Florence today, so if you're looking to get your steps in, that would be a great session for you to join.
Good morning. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kevin McQuillan. I'm here as a representative of the David Ruggles Center for Education and History, which is a small museum located right behind this church on the next street down. You can reach it by walking either direction around the block. And our museum celebrates, among other things, David Ruggles himself, who is the most famous and important, rather, black abolitionist of the early 19th century that nobody has ever heard of. It's part of our mission to make sure that people are aware of this wonderful man and the incredible work that he did, particularly in New York City in very turbulent times, fighting against slavery, slaveholders, the organization in New York City at the time that supported the slave trade and the cotton trade, and as a result was so inimical to free black people and self-emancipated slaves who reached that city. He's an incredible character, very passionate, and his story is wonderful, and it's part of what we tell. David Ruggles was also very important in the Underground Railroad, and we are a facility on the National Parks Underground Railroad network, and we tell that story too. We're particularly addressing here this morning, or I'm particularly addressing educators and students who are interested. Our mission is that We honor the contributions made to the abolition of slavery by courageous individuals in the Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. Our location in the village of Florence, right here within Northampton, commemorates those who came here to challenge slavery, live in freedom, and establish a community based on principles of race, gender, class, and religious equality. We seek to educate and inspire our visitors to possibilities in the present by sharing those powerful voices from the past. And to that end, we conduct guided tours. We're doing one this morning. If you're interested, I'll be out at the Sojourner Truth statue right across the street at 10:40, and we'll lead a 1-hour guided tour, get you back here in time for lunch. We also invite school groups to visit our museum. We have tours that we tailor to elementary grades, high school, middle school, high school grades, college. We also have a curriculum designed for middle and high school that's based on original sources, documents, newspaper articles, maps, census records, manuscript records. It's a wonderful resource for teachers. We will tailor what we do to U.S. history, black history, local history, civil rights, the Underground Railroad, any particular topic within the umbrella of what we cover, we will cater to you. So I would urge you to go on our website and check it out. I have some handouts for any of the teachers or team leaders or counselors who are here this morning that I can distribute to you so that we can stay in touch. And finally, I would just like to say, you can be in no better place here today for what Self-Evident is doing in providing this conference. Prior to this church being built, this very location was a place where so many important people in the abolitionist movement in the early 19th century who came through Florence used to come here, and there was a big pine grove out the back. You can still see the pine trees from any of the rear windows out there, and that was their church. They would gather under that, members of the utopian community known as Northampton Association for Education and Industry. And among the people who spoke there were David Ruggles, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, William Lloyd Garrison, Wendell Phillips. They were all here before this church was even here. So this is a hallowed place for what you are experiencing today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin. So I am about to bring to the stage a phenomenal experience for you all to start the morning with. The Ajanku brothers are based out of New York City and Baltimore. They grew up playing traditional West African music, and they are going to bring that history and that talent to the stage for you through a presentation called Heart Music, the Djembe edition. The heart is vital for life. Music is vital for healing. Drums connect us directly to our heart's rhythm, transcending barriers and creating community. So join me in welcoming the Ajanku brothers as they help us create community.
And good morning. Good morning. How we feeling this morning? Come on, y'all could do better than that. I said, how we feeling this morning? Very good. We are the Ajanku brothers, and we are also the founders of the Sankofa Project. Sankofa is a word from Ghana. Ghana is a country in West Africa, and it means reaching back to move forward. In other words, we look at our past, we look at our culture, we look at the traditions of yesterday to help us build a brighter future and a stronger tomorrow. Sankofa, it's an African word, but it's a word that's good, that's powerful, that's meaningful for all people, because we all have ancestors whose shoulders we stand upon. Everyone say Sankofa! Now, before we talk, before we sing, before we dance, the drums, they always come first to clear the area of negativity and to let you know we bring good things for you. And so we always welcome you. We greet you with one of the oldest instruments known to man, and that is the drum. So we're gonna have to wake up. This is gonna be participatory. African dance and African drum is a participatory sport. Everybody say that. Say it 3 times fast. Now, what does that mean? That means you participate, right? It's not the opera. We love the applause, but we're gonna share energy for the time that we have this morning. And so we have these drums, and we always welcome you first with the drums. They let you know that good things are happening. They are a call for our community to come together. When drums play, people come together. When people come together and drums are playing, what's the next thing that happens? We dance. And so we are gonna get to some dancing, but we're gonna warm you up. We got these drums. First, we wanna welcome you with a song and dance called Funga. Everyone say Funga. And Funga is a welcome song, it's a welcome rhythm from Liberia. And Liberia is another country in West Africa. And so one of the first things you're gonna notice is that when we welcome you, we don't do it with frowns on our faces. We don't do it looking angry and mean. We always are gonna give you what? A smile, and that is very important in West African culture. Second, if you look at the steps in the dance, you're gonna see that we welcome you from our hearts, from the earth, and from the people around. But there's a song that comes with this dance. There's a song that comes with this rhythm that we need you all to help us sing. Can we get you to help us sing today? All right, good. So everybody repeat after me. Say, Funga alafia. Funga alafia. Funga alafia. Funga alafia. Ashe, ashe. Ashe, ashe. Ashe, ashe. Now when we sing it, we put it together, and it sounds like Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Let me hear you. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. And that's our first verse, and it means welcome. Welcome to my home, welcome to my space. And when we say ashe, it's like saying it is so or so be it. Now our second verse, a little tricky, but listen carefully and repeat. We say, Kaiwo ile kaiwo. Try it. Kaiwo ile kaiwo. Kaiwo ile kaiwo. Kaiwo ile kaiwo. Ashe, ashe. Ashe, ashe. And so just like the first verse, we put it together, and it sounds like Kaiwo ile kaiwo. Ashe, ashe. Let me hear you. One more time. Kaiwo, ile kaiwo, ashe, ashe. Kaiwo, ile kaiwo, ashe, ashe. And that's our second and final verse. And it means what is available to me is also available to you. Or what I have in my home, you also have in my home. So when we sing it in call and response. I'll sing, you sing. I call, you respond. But first, everyone clear your throats. And we all have to sing to the same rhythm. So let's get a hand clap. Right here with this kinkany drum. You see the small drum all the way to my left, you're right. Clap with that drum. 5, 6, 7, and clap. Okay, right there. That's beautiful. Keep it right there. Right there. Right there. Now remember, I sing, then you sing. I sing, then you sing. Ashe, Ashe, sing. Ashe, Ashe. Kaiwo, Ashe, Ashe. Kaiwo, Ile Kaiwo, Ashe, Ashe. Kaiwo, Ile Kaiwo, Ashe, Ashe. Kaiwo, Ile Kaiwo, Ashe, Ashe. All right, everybody say thank you, Baba Jumoke. And now, we've welcomed you. We've welcomed you with drums, with song, and with dance. Do you feel welcomed? I said, do you feel welcomed? Good. But do you all know each other? Okay, so right now, we're gonna play drums for approximately 48 seconds. And in that 48 seconds, you have an assignment. Go meet 3 new people. Not yet. 5, 6, get ready. That means you gotta be scouting out who you're gonna meet now, because you only got 46 seconds, 48. 5, 6, 7, and go. Technically, that's time, but we're gonna double the time. As you make your way back to your seat, meet 2 more people. Everybody turn to your new friends and give them a wave and say, yeah. And so that's one thing about these drums. Music creates community. Just the act of drumming is a communal act in and of itself. But in order to do it, we do it in groups, in family groups, in community groups. And so the first step to us becoming a drum ensemble, we are about to become the Bombyx West African djembe ensemble. And so the first step to that was getting to know each other a little bit. You have time throughout this whole weekend to continue to deepen those relationships. The first step is just introducing, and then you take time to deepen and to learn. That is the way that we close divides, by talking and interrogating our own thought processes behind who we're talking to. So anyway, enough about that. We have this drum. This drum is called a djembe. Everyone say djembe. Djembe. Say it again. And the djembe is made from, tell me, wood. This that I'm pointing, rope. Yes, we got wood, we got rope. On the top of the drum, we have a skin. What kind of skin? Does anyone know by any chance? A goat skin. Yes, sir. Goat skin. So we have wood, rope, goat skin, and under the goat skin, we have metal rings holding everything together. So we have this djembe. It's made from wood, and we get 3 sounds from the djembe, 3 basic sounds, and they are tone, slap, and bass. Again, we have tone, slap, and bass. Now that's 3 notes one hand. I have two hands. How many notes is that in total? 3 notes on one hand. I have 2 hands. How many notes does that give me? 6. 6 basic notes. But those notes are like the prime colors. Once you start to mix those prime colors up, then we're talking about infinite possibilities. But we have to start somewhere. And we start with these 6 notes. So we have this drum, it's called a, and the djembe is made from, and we get how many notes from the djembe? And we put those 6 notes together to then begin to create rhythms and melodies. The djembe. So now, the bass sound in our orchestra comes from these drums called doom-dooms. Everyone say doom-dooms. But you notice when I said it, I dropped my voice a bit. Doom-dooms. Yeah, this is the Malinke language. It's a tonal language, so you have to use the correct tone when you're saying the words. Doom-dooms. Yes, we have 3 doom-dooms here, 3 bass drums. The biggest and the largest is called the doom-doom-ba. Everyone say doom-doom-ba. Then we have the middle-sized drum and the mid-ranged sound. The song-ba. Say song-ba. 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 So, we have the... And then the small drum over there, the highest pitched sound, is called the kinkini. Doesn't she sound cute? Kinkity. So we have the kinkity, the and the and all 3 of these drums are made from larger animal, still domesticated, cow skin. Why? Why cow skin on this drum and goat skin on this drum? One is more durable than the other. Why? Is it the size of the animal? Yes. The larger animal will obviously have a thicker skin, and so it can withstand the pressure of being hit with a stick. We never play the djembe with a stick. When do we play the djembe with a stick? Okay, just in case, because this is you can take this throughout your life with you. Whenever you see a djembe now, you're gonna know. What's this drum called? Djembe. And what's it made from? And how many notes do we get from it? And what are these drums called? And what are they made from? And just like the djembe, we use these sounds to create rhythms and melodies. So when we play our music, we play what's known as a polyrhythm. Polyrhythm. I see all those instruments back there. Somebody from the band, tell me what a polyrhythm is. More than one rhythm, but it's one more important step. All coming together in a harmonious fashion. Because you could put a whole bunch of stuff together and it'd be controlled chaos. We could put things together. The thing about a polyrhythm is that they all lock in together harmoniously. And so whenever we play our music, we're always playing a polyrhythm. We're gonna play a rhythm for you right now called kuku. And kuku is a celebration of a good fishing harvest from Guinea, West Africa. But we're gonna play it so we can demonstrate how this polyrhythm builds, starting with the kinkani. Downbeat, metronome. Next, the songba. Melody, song. Next, we have the doom doom ba. Power and depth. Finally, the djembe. One more time. We have the kinkani, songba, doom doom ba, djembe. And this is what it sounds like when we all start together.
How's everybody doing? Pretty good? After that opener, that was a pretty amazing way to get things started. Everybody's nice and loosened up. It's great to be back for Power of Truths. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with me, my name's Akrobatic. I am one of the members of the advisory board for Self-Evident Education, and Michael Lawrence-Riddell is a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends in the world, so I'm really proud to be up here with him. Today I have a co-presenter with me who I'd like to come up and have join me on the stage. This is ReBelle. ReBelle is one of Boston's greatest all-time women on the microphone as an MC. She's traveled all over the world. She's been to Europe, Africa, and all over the United States with her music and her mind, and I'm very happy to have you up here with me today. Dutch is going to be performing as part of Know the Ledge tomorrow, and she'll be performing as two different roles, Ida B. Wells and Sojourner Truth, who has the statue outside. So if you are going to be here tomorrow, you're in for a really good treat with that. What I'm here today and what we're here today to talk about is basically hip hop, and its many uses and some even misconceptions about it, and the ways that it's affected my life and our lives and the lives of so many people in America and around the world. You know, when I, as a rapper, tell people that I rap, you know, it sets off a whole bunch of different kinds of reactions. I don't know if your experience has been the same, but a lot of times Absolutely. It comes with expectations. For instance, you know, if people are like, "What do you do?" And oh, well, I'm an MC. I'm a hip hop artist. Oh, have you made a diss track? Who don't you like, and what did you say about them? What did they say about you? And you know, we have kind of evolved into a society that loves confrontation and loves to see people going at it going at each other. And hip hop has been caught up in that web, just like everything else. But just to start, one of the things that I want to say is that's America. If you look at just about any aspect of American life, American entertainment, you see that, there's like a versus in between every two things. You got to be on one side or the other. We were just talking last night about how there's like no middle ground anymore. It's either a classic or it's trash. You're either amazing or you're just a horrible person, and we've kind of lost that gray area. I want to bring some of that gray area back, especially with hip hop. There are a few different ways that I think that can be done, and one speaks to my personal experience. So if you guys don't mind, I just want to share a little bit of just my early life as it relates to hip hop, so that you have an idea of what my perspective is. I was born and grew up in Dorchester, which is part of Boston. I grew up with a single mom, and I have a little brother, but he's 8 years younger than me. So I was experiencing being an only child until, my brother came along. But then it was cool after a while. I got used to him being there, and now we're great friends. But with that age difference, I definitely had a lot of time just growing up and watching different things on TV. And eventually, this thing called hip hop came along. And it came along first to me in the form of rap music. I mean, there had been graffiti around, and for those of you who aren't familiar, hip-hop has different elements, and the original main elements were rapping or emceeing, DJing, which to me is like the first element. Without the DJ, there's no music, and we'd all be rapping a cappella. Breakdancing, and graffiti art. Graffiti art obviously has been around a very long time in many different forms, but was definitely co-opted into hip-hop culture at a very early stage in hip-hop in the 70s. So me as a kid, I'm really feeling, especially when I look back on it, I was lucky. I was lucky to be born at the time where hip-hop kind of first grasped the imaginations of people in America, and then later people around the world. So when I think to the folks who ask me, oh, did you write a diss track? When's your next diss track? Who are you battling? I wonder where they stepped in to things, at what time. Because the way hip hop was introduced to me, and the way I'm really committed to reintroducing hip hop to people, was as a way of coping. It was a coping mechanism. It was a coping mechanism for the fact that there was rampant poverty, especially in New York, in the Bronx, where hip hop started. That was a very important thing. It was a coping mechanism for life being difficult. And what I wanted to do throughout this talk is just share a few pieces of art with you that, from different times in hip hop, that spoke through lyricism about the different things that were going on in these cities and in these times. The backdrop for the very beginning of hip hop in New York in the mid-70s was in the Bronx, specifically the South Bronx. There was a serious housing crisis, and by housing crisis, what I mean is landlords of low-income housing were literally burning down their own buildings in order to get the insurance money. And in doing so, that left a lot of people disenfranchised, displaced, and left with nowhere to go. And hip hop was literally born from this scenario where people were forced to like bring what little equipment they had and their speakers and their turntables out into the parks. And people would just congregate in the parks, and you'd have these big parties that eventually became known as hip hop parties. And in the beginning of rap, a lot of the rap was just kind of keeping the crowd engaged. The DJ was the star of the show. And the MC would just kind of get on the mic and, everybody say ho, and, a lot of call and response stuff was going on. But then, there was the breakthrough. even the youngest of you probably have heard Rapper's Delight at this point. Hip hop, hip hop, you don't stop the rock. You probably heard it. And if you heard it, if you don't think you have, once you do, you probably recognize it because the song is ubiquitous even still to this day. But then songs started to have more lyrical content and people really wanted to use the music to get the word out there of what they were going through. So I want us to watch this video together, not this one, but the message, please, the first one furthest to the left by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. This is one of the first big rap records. And the reason why I wanted to start with it, not only chronologically because of where it fits, but also because it's a song about basically mental health. You know, and I think a lot of folks don't think about rap in those terms, in the terms where it can actually be helpful. I think that there are some avant-garde artists in this current era that do give you that, but it's not rampant. It's not just all throughout the culture the way that it was in the beginning. So this video, just for a quick setup, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, who are, by the way, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now. Grandmaster Flash was the DJ. The DJ was the star of the show, like I said, in the early days of hip hop. The Furious Five were the MCs. This song, I think only two of the rappers in the group actually rap on the song, but you'll notice it's a little bit of a longer song. A 6-minute song these days is like London Symphony Orchestra, basically. You know what I mean? Most of the songs that like an Ice Spice song is like 1 minute and 31 seconds, right? You know, so it's a little bit long, but please, I would just ask, pay attention to the lyrical content of the song, what these guys are talking about, and think about the backdrop that I just gave you of what their area where they lived was like, because these guys are from that part of New York where hip hop started as well. Okay, Chris, thanks. So, in this video, there are a lot of themes. Thank you, Chris. There are a lot of themes that we still see today. And with the song addressing all these things and the chorus being what it is, that's what I think makes it so effective and why I decided to play it, because, you know, they are all talking about, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, talking about what's going on around them, and then it all culminates with, don't push me because all this stuff that's going around me is driving me crazy, and, you know, I might retaliate. And it gives you a little bit of a window into the mind of somebody who's living under those conditions, which a lot of the folks who find the music and found the music back then on the radio without, you know, being able to see these guys or know what their world or what their life was like, that was the window into the reality. And that was why hip hop was born, because disco and R&B weren't giving us that same reality. All those songs were basically saying everything's great, everything's all right, and every song should be your love song. And with hip hop, we found a music that could take us to different realms of what we were thinking about. But you notice the same problems, the racial profiling. That's one of the biggest things that is haunting us in America here today, almost 50 years later. You know, people that just, to someone, look like they shouldn't be here are getting kidnapped and taken away in unmarked vehicles, the same way the cops did to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five here. And they're like, man, what, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five? What are you talking about? And the cop's just like, what's that, a gang? You know, a congregation of black men sounds like a gang to me, basically, is what the cops were saying there. And then, you know, there's also just that really poignant verse in there, the last verse, where Melly Mel is basically, you know, professing to any youngster that might hear that, you know, like, don't be fooled by these guys that are in your neighborhood that seem to be the ones on top, because they're basically, you know, the king of an anthill, because they're gonna live fast and die young, and you don't want to be in that situation. So from very early on, from the very beginning, it was established hip hop is about social change. Rap music can be and very much is about trying to create a better tomorrow for the next generation, for the people that are around you, etc. And so for me, in my early life, I know Dutch is much younger than me, so she wasn't around yet to see all this. But for me, you know, as someone who was starting out in like grade school around this time, I'm now going to school and I'm learning history, right? And I'm learning, you know, social studies. I'm learning about black history, a little bit about slavery. They glossed over it. And I was wondering, like, how come we're not talking about resistance in any way? There's no way that resistance was taught to me in school, not the people who were resisting. I mean, we got Martin Luther King. You know, they told us about that, but the host of people that we end up talking about and covering and highlighting in an event like Power of Truths and Know the Ledge, you know, those people weren't taught to me in school. I didn't know who they were until I was an adult. And hip-hop music, though, through the music of people like KRS-One and Public Enemy and Queen Latifah and artists like that, De La Soul, I started to learn, the Jungle Brothers, I started to learn about a lot of these people that I otherwise wouldn't have found out about. So a big part of my education has come through hip-hop. And then, luckily, I somehow, you know, got discovered as a rapper myself as a teenager. And that set off, you know, a string of events that ended up with me going all over the world. And, you know, I'm very thankful, very fortunate. I've performed in over 20 countries now. And thank you. And in doing that, well, it's not a flex. No. But
he was gonna try to sneak past that real fast. We're not doing it.
It's not a flex. It's not a flex. I'm just saying that it gave me...
Yes, it is. Sorry. Yes, it is. Okay, go ahead.
It gave me the opportunities, you know, to meet people from all over the world and to see how hip-hop started to make its way overseas and around the world and influence musicians and artists. And they took that same mantra. They began to make music that was about their reality and what it was like politically in their country and what the social issues were in their country. And then I'm there seeing it. You know, I'll go to like Switzerland and do a show and the opening artists are rapping, and a lot of them were rapping in English about the things that they were seeing in their environment. So, you know, that gave me even more reassurance that what I was doing is the right thing. And again, from my own personal experience, after many years of being out there and performing and seeing all of this from the perspective of an entertainer, I came back and started to teach a class at UMass Boston that I ended up teaching for almost 11 years. And it was a course on the history of hip-hop and the evolution of hip-hop and hip-hop's effect on people in the United States and around the world. And it was a very popular class. And, you know, so much of it covered the influences of these people in New York and how they expanded this music across the country. And now, you know, just 50 years later, it's the #1 consumed type of music in the world. And again, my focus here with you guys today is about, you know, lyrics for social change. Lyrics that make a difference. Chuck D from Public Enemy, if you don't know Public Enemy, I highly recommend that you look their music up and watch some of their videos. But Chuck D, the leader of Public Enemy, he said that, you know, sometimes being important can be just as great, if not greater, than being popular. So, you know, when you're watching a YouTube video and, you know, maybe it's got 150 million views, that doesn't necessarily speak to the importance of the video. It speaks to the popularity of the video. Not in all cases. There's some things that 1 billion people have seen that are great. But if you look at it in other contexts, let's say McDonald's. On their advertising, it's like billions and billions served. So that must be the best food, right? That's got to be the healthiest food. Everybody knows to go to McDonald's and get that Big Mac because, you know, we're trying to stay healthy here. And it's like, no, it doesn't necessarily work that way. The most popular option is not always going to be the healthiest, and it's not always going to be the best thing for your soul necessarily, okay? Now, with rap music, there's one more video I want to share with you before I open this conversation to talk with Dutch a little bit more. This next video is the brainchild of an artist called KRS-One. KRS-One is probably my favorite rapper of all time because of his body of work and his dedication. I mean, the man is turning 60 this year and is right now, as we speak, in like Barcelona, Spain, about to do a show for 800 people tonight or something like that, like jumping around on stage like with more energy than all of us combined. It's really an amazing thing. What he did in the late 80s, heading into 1990, was he started a coalition of artists, and the coalition was called the Stop the Violence Movement. And what the Stop the Violence Movement did was they wanted to get together to show all the people that were giving hip-hop music such a bad rap about being about, you know, guns and violence and sex and drugs. Let me just ask you guys something. Who here thinks that hip-hop invented guns? I don't. My hand was up just to say by show of hands. Who here thinks that hip-hop invented sexual promiscuity? Drug abuse? There's some people out there that will tell you that all these things are rampant problems in the United States because of things like rap music. But they all predate rap music by decades, in some cases centuries. The American pop way, pop is just short for popular, is to take those things, because even before hip hop existed, and some of the older folks in the room might be able to remember the term sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know, it was just the things that went with whatever was popping at the time. The Ghetto Boys are a rap group from Houston, Texas that I loved, but they were easily, I still love them, but they're easily the most vulgar rap group probably that I can think of anyway. I mean, they did not pull any punches. And they were from Texas. When they came to New York one year to perform at this event called the New Music Seminar, the crowd booed them because of how vulgar they were. They would say anything, they didn't care. And after that tour, they went and put out another album, and I can remember specifically one of the lines in one of the songs on this second album, where Bushwick Bill, rest in peace to him, he says, he's speaking to basically the parents and the censors, and he's like, you don't want your kids hearing songs of this nature, but you take them to the movies to watch Schwarzenegger. And sure enough, Arnold Schwarzenegger was, this action hero who eventually went on to be the governor of California, but he was an action hero in the movies like The Terminator and End of Days and all these movies. He's pulling out the biggest guns you've ever seen. He's blowing people's heads off. He's chopping people's arms off. All types of blood everywhere. He always gets the girl in the movie. All these things that, for some reason, when rappers use their imaginations to be creative in the same way, it was vilified and seen as this really evil thing. While Hollywood is getting paid, and the actors in Hollywood are getting paid hand over fist to do and say the same exact things. Like, for instance, imagine people protesting Quentin Tarantino movies. Quentin Tarantino can make a movie as a white director and have his actors say the N-word 200 times in the movie and nobody complained. But when rappers were just, cursing, just dropping F-bombs, that was a problem. Why are you doing this to our kids? Why are you making our kids listen to this? What are these images? So on that, I just stand on the brand. The brand of the vulgarity is kind of what makes America uncomfortable. And so artists who came along to speak out against that and to also take accountability for what's going on in their own community at the same time is of utmost importance. And this video, I think, shows that. Can we go to self-destruction? I don't think self-destruction is 6 minutes, but it's another long one because there's a lot, 6 minutes exactly, and 1 second. But there's a lot of artists on this one, and it's another one where the lyrical content, I consider myself an ambassador for hip hop, so I like to find the music that bolsters that position for me, and I think that this is one of those songs that does this. And so if anybody ever said to me, I think rap is garbage because all they do is talk about violence and killing each other and drugs and all that, I'd say, well, listen to this. I have a list of songs and artists to check out, and this is definitely one of them. Thanks, Chris. So this was basically the entire the entire rap industry all coming together at one time for a common purpose. I don't know to what degree that would be possible now, but it was very effective at the time. I mean, this was a music video that we were all running home from school to hope to see on television at 3 o'clock on Rap City or Yo MTV Raps or whatever it was. And needless to say, like, it was just so influential. For me to see like my favorite rappers together on a record talking about this and not, you know, what they could be talking about was just really, really powerful. And so all of these influences that I'm talking about that led to me becoming a teacher. I didn't plan to become a teacher. I got asked to visit a class at UMass Boston by my mentor, Rachel Rubin, who had me visit. I walked into her classroom. She had a class on American pop culture and was doing a unit on hip hop. And when I walked into her class, she had The Message playing, Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5. And I was like, oh, I like this already. And the class went so well. She was like, hey, what do you think about co-teaching a class with me that I'm developing? And I'm like, you know, why not? I'll give it a shot. And I went and started teaching that class with her. After a few semesters, I got to teach it by myself for a while. But, you know, those influences made me realize, and then that one visit made me realize how important it is to have hip hop be part of any curriculum. Because as you can see, hip hop is Black history. Black history is American history. So it's part of the whole thing. And to skip this and to skip these people and these figures and what they were doing and what they were trying to accomplish in that climate would be incredibly remiss. And also you notice that the ladies were also involved in this project. You know, you had MC Light there, you had Miss Melody, rest in peace to her as well. And that would also continue a tradition. You know, people like MC Light and Queen Latifah and later like people like Lauryn Hill, Doechii, right? Like so many different artists would come along later with all these same influences. And I'm sure if you sat any of those artists down, they would all talk about that connection. And really that is what Power of Truths is all about. It's about maintaining that link from one generation to the next, because otherwise we have to relearn everything. You know, and speaking of women in hip hop and speaking of my class, many times over the years, my guest to my course has been Dutch ReBelle. And Dutch has come through and spoken so eloquently about so many topics in hip hop that she has literally left, you know, students in my class in tears. You know, one of the most memorable moments that I can think of was, and you must remember this, when one of the students at the end of the class, you know, it was like a class with like 150 students, and one young lady just comes up to Dutch and she's just like, I just want to say thank you. And Dutch is like, well, thanks, you know, for what? She's like, for betting on yourself and taking a chance on yourself. You know, because that alone is inspirational to people who might be sitting around like, oh, you know, does it matter if I even do this? Is anybody gonna listen? Is anybody gonna care? And I'm telling you right now, for me, and I'm sure Dutch probably feels the same, it wouldn't matter to me if there were 25 people in this room or 25,000. The message is the same, you know, and as long as it's permeating and as long as it's gonna continue beyond this room, then we're happy. But I would like for Dutch, if you could, to just introduce yourself a little more thoroughly and let the folks know who you are. And please just speak a little bit to your experience being a female rapper. Of course, that's a question that a lot of people are going to ask you. But to me, you're one of the people who can give the realest answer because you've never been in it for the fame. You know what I mean? And it's a very much organic process that you've had. So I would just like for you to share with them.
You're amazing, by the way. Can you make some noise for him, please?
Thank you.
All right, let's talk about my little old self after that. All right. Hi, guys. How y'all doing? I always start the same way, so I'm a very high energy person. So when I kiss, I need everybody to bang, bang, kiss.
Bang, bang.
Kiss.
Bang, bang.
Kiss.
Bang, bang.
Yes, all right, cool. Now I feel comfortable. All right. We got to put a little noise in here, you know? All right, so yes, I'm Dutch ReBelle, ReBelle. I feel like that's a great way to start that. It's not rebel, it's ReBelle. You know, to my core, to how I grew up, Haitian and Dominican. you know, Caribbeans, we have a resilience to us. Also, you know, if you know any Haitian people, tough, kind of militant, if you grew up that way. So ReBelle, for me, was just always something that I feel like revolutions, rebellions, revolts, they always kind of get like a bad name or like a dark cloud to it. And for me, that's the most beautiful thing in the world, because that's how change happens, that's how things evolve from. So the ReBelle in my name is an ode to where I was born, you know what I'm saying, and putting beauty back into change and you know, radical thoughts and stuff like that. So that's kind of, you know, the core of who I am. But yeah, I grew up in Boston. I was born in Haiti, grew up in the city. I went to Penn State, I went to college. I feel like being a girl who was kind of always hanging with the guys, I have a lot of uncles, you know what I mean? So there was always this, the thought process of Haitian women, Caribbean women, you have to be polite, you have to cook, you have to clean, you have to, you know, don't be too loud, all these other things. But then you have like my tomboy mom who's out here with all my uncles and she's cooking and she's playing music. So there was a lot of different elements that I feel like I had to navigate through. You know, you touched on a lot of points as far as even some of these songs. Like, we're telling our stories, we're telling the things that we go through, and sometimes these are the only places that we can speak, you know, it's funny, freestyle our thoughts, if that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? In a verse, I can just put whatever in there for real. Like, it's like, you know, I had a turkey sandwich this morning, and then, you know, I'm cute and blah, 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 and I could just run on thoughts, you know what I mean? So I feel like as a female in the game, like, I always say, like, you know, one didn't go before the other. Like, female in hip hop, I've always been a woman. I don't know any other way, so I don't really know like what it's not like to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, people are like, what's it like? I'm like, I don't know any other way. Being a woman, period, it's kind of hard, you know what I'm saying? Because especially if you're doing things that are male dominated, and if you are vocal, if you do have a lot of energy, also if you look a different way. I went to school in Milton, Massachusetts. It's not the most diverse until it was, and then it was very tense is a nice word to use. But juggling all those things as a young girl, like, shout out to all my girls in the building, yeah. But, you know, juggling all those things, you're just like, I don't even know who I want to be, because I'm still trying to figure out what it looks like. Like, until you've seen a representation of something that is familiar to you, it's kind of harder to navigate, you know what I mean? So as far as who I am and where I come from, big family, a lot of cousins. You know, I get into my house and there's like 40 new cousins in my room. I have no idea who they are. My mom's like, hey, they're your family. But then you go to other people's houses and, you know, it might be like a small family. So then it's like, you know, no one comes over there. Meanwhile, I have like 6 uncles that have keys to my house. Like, so all those different dynamics, and then going to school in Milton, going to a good school. I went to Penn State for college. Like, academics were non-negotiable. But that had nothing to do with like real life. You know what I mean? Like, being good at stuff, just checking all the boxes. But if nothing, like, you're not passionate about anything, then I think that you get a little lost. So I think my journey through music was just figuring out, what do you do when you've done all the satisfactory stuff? What do you do when you checked off all the expectations, but you still have so much more to do? And through, like, you know, it was creative writing first. It was poetry first. Then it was like spoken, like, I didn't really do spoken word too much, because I always had I needed a beat, I needed a rhythm. But all that just kind of snowballed into the career that I have now. You spoke on those events, just kind of led to a path, and yeah, that's what it was. I didn't say like I wanted to be a rapper. I would rap, and somebody was like, you should do a show, and I was like, all right. They're like, I'll pay you. I was like, all right. And yeah. Next thing you know, fast forward, I'm here with you guys, and exactly toured countries, and I've been independent the whole entire time, which is a whole different ball game.
I guess that's why they call it a calling, right? You get called to it,
yeah,
and you end up doing it. Now, for Know the Ledge, which is the performance that we'll be putting on here tomorrow night in this room on this stage, you play 2 roles. You play the role of Sojourner Truth, who is the woman who has the statue outside of the building here, and also Ida B. Wells. Is there anything that you think you learned through the process of trying to become those 2 historical figures and putting your music and your mind to bring their stories to life on stage? Did you learn anything in that process, and was there anything different between the 2 characters that made you have to approach the process differently?
Absolutely. So first off, you know, I think that growing up in Massachusetts, you might have heard these names. But unless you're really, like you said, we're not learning them in school, not really. I mean, there might have been a 10-minute review real quick one day in my life. But having to do the research to really learn who they are, because, you know, when I got booked for it, I'm like, oh, great, I know these names. But then when I saw, like, it's like, this is her hometown, I was like, whoa, I gotta come correct. You know what I mean? Like, that's an honor, because that's a spiritual side of it. Like, we just fall into the things we fall into. So for me, that was like, all right, let me like really melt into this assignment, because Sojourner Truth was first. Yeah. The second time around, we added I to B. So for Sojourner, it was really like, I have to not be Dutch, if that makes sense. Like, it was a little tricky, because I was like, you know, I'm gonna come with the, right. You know what I mean? Like, but it's like, wait, like, put yourself in these women's shoes at that time, because we're similar in the way that we're doing something that most society is saying is not the norm for you, but being Sojourner Truth, like having to go through her specific trials would make you a certain type of person. You know what I mean? Like being someone who's, both of these women, writers and people who are have to internalize a lot of pain, where there's not a lot of people speaking about it in a big platform, but then on top of it, you're a woman with this voice. You know, I had to be a little bit more, not polite. These women were not polite, but a little bit more considerate to the words you're saying. You can't just say whatever like that. So I kind of use that in the delivery of the record to like use that for certain climaxes where I'm just speaking straight. Yeah, like you know, rifle say I was.
That's
up.
a big part of the power of the
Like,
performance, for sure.
Yeah, so that it did definitely make me approach both women with respect to who they individually were. You know what I mean? And also, there's so many amazing quotables from them anyway, that it kind of made it a little easy. I ain't gonna hold you. Like, I was like, it was real fun to flip things and make them a little modern. So yeah, it was a great experience to try to do something like that.
Well, to use the vernacular, you definitely got the assignment both
Appreciate
times,
it.
no question. And I urge you guys not to miss this show tomorrow night. And Dutch's performance is definitely a highlight of that. A little earlier, I talked about you know, importance and popularity. I think that you are one of those artists who is able to walk that line and balance it to where you can be popular and important at the same time.
Thank you.
And so that is going to be on full display tomorrow. And I'm just noticing, because we're getting close to the end and I don't know when we're going to get cut off, I want to share one more piece, because this is another thing that I think exhibits popularity and importance kind of being balanced. We've all heard of the Black Eyed Peas, right? They're one of the most famous rap groups in the world. They're known for such hits as My Humps and Let's Get It Started. And they've had a member of the group named Fergie for a long time, but Fergie left the group. And after Fergie left the group, these guys, the remaining members, the three guys, they went and made an album that they probably couldn't have made with Fergie still as a member of the group. And it was one of these instances where I was so surprised, because I've met these guys, I've opened up for them at shows, and they've always been these like fun-loving guys, getting the crowd dancing and, you know, clapping and all that. I didn't know that they had a serious side. And because of the time that this record came out, which was around 2019 or so, most of you guys are old enough to remember what the political climate was around here in America during that time. There were a lot of protests going on. There had been a lot of instances of unarmed people being attacked by police and these types of things. And this song, and specifically the video, which in my personal opinion is just one of the best rap videos ever made, it shows the trials and tribulations that the people of the time were going through, but the way that they present the raps is not as themselves, it's as the people who were the actual victims of these incidents and you know, that were actually there at these different time periods throughout history. And the way they captured it, I just think is pretty magical. So Chris, if we could play the Black Eyed Peas video. And then after that, if you guys have any questions, we'll spend the last couple minutes on that. Thanks, Chris. All right, so, I mean, I don't even know what needs to be said about that, but if you guys have any questions, I just want to point out the reference that's made in the song to the message. And, you know, in the beginning it was "Don't push me because I'm close to the edge," and in this song it's "Don't push me because I'm close to hell." You know, 40 years later, those songs are still being referenced, and that is one of the most important things about hip hop, and it's something that I teach in my class, why sampling is so important. You know, people are like, oh, you're just stealing something from someone. It's like, no, we're keeping something alive from someone that, you know, was important and might otherwise be forgotten, so we add on. So yeah, I think that's a powerful thing, and just kind of speaks to what America's like now and what it's been like, and leaves maybe more questions than answers as far as where we're going. But does anybody have any questions at all regarding this video or anything we've talked about? Yes, please.
Yeah, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on gatekeeping and the coveting of, so I guess let me just throw out there, I was born out of a black woman, so I might say we here. So when we're talking about, you know, African American culture, we're talking about 13% of one country that literally the rest of the world is looking at and copying for their popular culture. Like, you can look at South Korea. Rap music brought them out of their depression in the 80s. And so we're talking about like huge economic changes for around the world that was birthed here. People making music not for the populace, but for our own people. Yeah. And we see, right, like African American vernacular English is now being called internet slang, right? And even stay woke, which I just learned was probably coined by, well, not coined, but in a song by Leadbelly, right? Woke is something that's not new. It's something that's been communicated amongst African Americans to each other. And so I guess I'm wondering what your thoughts are about gatekeeping. Of course, the floodgates have already opened, but what can we do to kind of covet our own stuff and protect our creative and intellectual labor?
Well, that's a great question, and is well presented. I think that as far as gatekeeping goes, just my personal opinion, each of us as individuals are only here for a finite amount of time. And you can only do what you can while you're here and leave it behind. But when it comes to something like gatekeeping, like for instance, I'm definitely like, I'm probably one of the most anti-gun rappers you're ever gonna find, right? I hate guns. I think it's the worst invention in the history of humankind. But if I were to say to everyone, you know, anybody who raps about guns, don't listen to their music, you know, that's a form of gatekeeping that I think is not cool, because who am I to say that? You know, I can only speak on behalf of my culture from my own personal seat that I'm sitting in. I don't speak for the entire culture. I don't speak for all men. I don't speak for all black men. I don't speak for all rappers. I don't speak for all black people of Caribbean descent, any of the groups you want to put me in, right? So you can only gatekeep but so much, because like you said, the floodgates are open. This is something that's around the world, and we can't really pull back. All we can do is educate. So to me, it's through education and continuing to be ourselves. You know, be your authentic self and not go beyond or go too far outside of that just for the sake of making money, because I think that part of the education is probably outpacing what Dutch and I are doing up here on the stage and other artists like us are doing, because you know, capitalism is very attractive to people. People want money, people want attention, they want to be well known. So you're gonna end up with Iggy Azaleas, you know? Someone who will move from Australia to come here and pretend she's from Atlanta, or at least pretend to sound like she's from Atlanta, right? You know, you'll get those because you can leapfrog the authenticity. And that's what I think makes people want to become gatekeepers, you know, but I also think that those things sort themselves out, because, you know, Iggy Azalea's career is over. People are gonna see it after a while. It's just hard to stop that initial viral moment anytime something with some novelty comes along. But I think people are actually smart enough where they catch on to it and they will even banish you or kick you out or say, oh, we're tired of that. It's just that there's so many people that are gonna take that route that, I hate to use this example, but it was in one of the songs. It's like, if you live in a place where there's like pests, you turn on the light, there's roaches everywhere. Okay, how many of them are you going to kill before you realize that there's not much you can do about it? There's an issue that's a bigger picture issue. And so the people responsible for creating those living conditions and creating those living situations where people have to live amongst rats and roaches like they did in the South Bronx, those are the people that we should be talking to. And I don't think that's gatekeeping. I think that that's holding people accountable. Go to the record label and say, hey, look, you guys are only signing artists that have this to say and this to show. What's up with that? Versus going to the artists because they're just going for what the low-hanging fruit is and what, could easily get them out of the situations that they're in that are already tough to be in. You heard Black Eyed Peas, be the one that shot the gun or be the one who gets shot. Guns or books, sell crack or rap. Did you have something you want to add?
Yeah, you touched on a lot of points, so I'll just kind of go in there. But I think the biggest thing is understanding gatekeeping, period, right? Because there's good sides and there's bad sides. The bad sides are people literally Xing people out of opportunities and resources because they're trying to fit their business agenda, right? But then the flip side or the positive side is accountability, right? We want people to say that person is not an ally, that person is not really representing the culture, so they shouldn't, So I think the easiest way to kind of gauge it is it's about who owns the gate. That's what I always say. Like gatekeeping, it's about who owns the gate, though. Because that's the problem. Like, gatekeeping is not a problem. I can jump a damn gate. Who cares? That's not the problem. You know what I mean? The problem is, who are we allowing to be these gatekeepers? So you touched on labels. That's the big thing. If we are allowing people who are not of the culture to be the ones who are driving the economic force of it, we already know what's going to happen. So exactly your point. You're going to have artists that are just a carbon copy of something we saw because it's mass production. We need like 40 of those. So, you know what I mean? For every, like you said, like for every... I'm trying to remember who Iggy was like the complete mirror to, but there was someone that was like, and then they were like, all right, we're gonna drop an Iggy. Who was it? No, it was a rap. It was a rapper. It was a black person, and then it was Iggy. Like, and it's usually like a.
Yeah, I think
for
she
example,
said Azalea Banks. I always connect those two because of the names.
It's the names though. I mean, I think a better not better, but like a similar comparison is like there are people who say that Cardi came because of Nicki. Because she's Latina, you know what I mean? Like, or arguably, whatever.
Yeah, like, I would put Iggy in that category with like the southern lady rappers, like maybe like Trina or somebody like that.
Exactly. Well said. Yes. So I think that it's about like who's owning the gate, because the same concept of if, for example, through this amazing festival, we had somebody come up here and do like a hip hop performance, and you can just tell like this is like they don't listen to rap. You could feel that. Now, if someone was to say like we shouldn't book them, that is gatekeeping that is necessary, because that is wrong, and that is perpetuating things that are gonna, it's irresponsible, I guess. So gatekeeping is about a certain level of responsibility. We have to be accountable of who we're giving those responsibilities to, and that's a social media thing. It's what we were talking about yesterday, right? Like we give. A lot. Social media gave people a microphone that would have never had one. We never would have nominated you to be the speaker of anything. True. So that's what's now everyone has a voice and everyone thinks that they have a gate when it's really just an opinion.
Yeah, the ability to prove yourself or try to prove yourself without having to leave your home is definitely something that's changed a lot. The content creation era has changed a lot in terms of how we find the next person that we think we should be paying attention to. I believe one of the brothers in the back had a question. Let's do one last question. I know you guys got to get to lunch. Yes, sir. Please, brother. Yes. For sure. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Brothers Bleed.
Which is, I'm not familiar. Brothers Bleed, you said?
Biggie.
Oh, okay. Which song is that? How's that hook go? Oh, okay, yep. I remember that one. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Well said.
Right, I agree with that. I mean, that's I guess that's a statement more than a question, but I think it's a great place to leave on with to take into consideration, because it is important to bring those things back. That was kind of what I was getting at with the reference that Black Eyed Peas made back to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. It's not only, it's important to bring back the lyrics and the themes, but it's also important to let the people listening to you know what you're connected to, so that they might go back and find it on their own too.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like Brothers Bleed, a remake of that would be dope. Like maybe if somebody like a Yasin Bey or a Kendrick or somebody brought that back, that would be dope. And it would also be dope to just reference that in a way that gave people an opportunity to go back and hear what you're talking about. Because it's amazing that, yes, in such a short period of time of hip-hop being around, there are now so many songs that are so important that are old enough to have been either forgotten or not known yet by the younger audience. And so now, we're like 15 minutes over time. I really appreciate y'all.
One thing, if I can.
Sure, one last thing, we'll end with Dutch.
Real quick, and thank you guys, of course. Just because we're talking about like different concepts, Eve, Love is Blind, if you guys know Eve, Love is Blind, please look that up, because I think to your point, there's also different topics that aren't just the entry-level poverty, resistance and things like that. There's a lot of levels to the things that we go through. So, that's a song about domestic violence, things like that. But on to your point of importance as opposed to popularity, I just wanted to shout out the Sankofa guys back there, because as soon as you guys started performing, that Afunga, the words came right out my mouth. I don't know when I learned that song, I have no idea, but importance and popularity is such a thing, because that just brought me back to exactly where I was. So everything we're talking about starts with the music, so shout out to you guys.
Can I just say, I have, from my good friends from out here in Western Mass, Straight Path Jewels, I have a Sankofa bird necklace with a Sankofa bird pendant with the bird looking back to look forward. So as soon as y'all hit that right there, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be beautiful.
Ashe, ashe, you already.
Ashe, ashe. Thank you, everybody. All right, enjoy the rest of the conference.